Very, very happy to be here. My name is Tycho. I'll be moderating today, and I run Bitcoin strategy at Treasury. So I'm very excited to present this with you guys. But maybe before we get started, maybe let's warm up a little bit, because we'll be talking about putting your assets to work, right? And mainly about putting Bitcoin to work. So maybe just to kind of understand, also for you guys, right, who is in the room. Maybe let's just do a quick show of hands. Like, who here holds Bitcoin? This should be an easy one, right? Guys, this is obligatory. Okay. Pretty much everyone holds Bitcoin. Now, who holds a Bitcoin Treasury stock? All right. It's pretty much everyone. Now, who here has ever earned yield on their Bitcoin? So has ever put their Bitcoin to work to basically earn more Bitcoin? Okay. So that's about 30% of people. So that's basically what we'll be talking about today, right? Because this is kind of one of the main things that Bitcoin treasury companies can do, or companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But before we dive in, maybe let's do a quick round of intros. What you do and which company you represent. Maybe starting.
Yeah. Paul Tarantino. I'm the CEO of Byte Federal.
I'm Matthew Whitcomb, VP of Capital Markets and Corporate Finance for LQWD Technologies. We're a Bitcoin treasury company that powers the Lightning Network as our operating business. We're publicly traded in Canada and the US. Our ticker is LQWD in Canada on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and then in the US on the OTCQX, it's LQWDF.
Alexandre Laizet, Board Director of Bitcoin Strategy at Capital B. Capital B is Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company. And we are completely focused on deploying the strategy playbook at European scale.
Amazing. And now I think for everyone also to know, what does your business do, and how do you generate, or how do you put your assets to work, right? How do you put your Bitcoin balance sheet to work? And feel free to take your time with this one, right? Not everyone might know what a Bitcoin ATM is. Not everyone might know what the Lightning Network is. So maybe let's start with just...
So Byte Federal is a private company. And we are building a Bitcoin financial services company. We started in 2016 with Bitcoin ATMs. We now have mobile wallets. We do payment processing. We do real estate, and we just entered the gaming space. So, our real challenge has been how to build a business in an environment when banks didn't want to work with us. If you can imagine, when you go into a bank in the early days of our company, and you say you're a Bitcoin business, they just closed the doors. And then when you showed up a week later with a bag full of cash, they pushed you out the door. So we relied on Bitcoin to really bank ourselves. And that became our tagline at Byte Federal: go bank yourself. And it really became the way that we grew our business. So Byte Federal is a small entrepreneurial business. It was started with $500,000 of capital from friends and family. We now do over $100 million a year in gross sales. It's profitable. And that business was built by banking ourselves on Bitcoin. So all of our profits went into Bitcoin. That Bitcoin worked as a treasury asset. It worked as our savings account, and it worked as our capital partner. And it was a lovely silent capital partner, because it allowed us to build and grow our business when we needed to and how we needed to, without having to get permission. So Bitcoin for us has been a very useful tool and got us to where we are. We have not had to raise any more capital. We are currently in the final edits of our S1, and we'll be filing to go public in the NASDAQ sometime in the first or second quarter of next year.
Exciting.
I can concur. In 2016, I was running an OTC desk in Canada, and banking was a nightmare. But anyways, so LQWD, we're a Lightning Network operating business. So what we do is, well, first, if anybody doesn't know what the Lightning Network is, it's a peer-to-peer protocol. It's a network that allows you to spend your Bitcoin instantly, pretty much, and cost effectively. So you can go and buy that cup of coffee with your Bitcoin without paying 2x on fees. And what we do, a Lightning Network in LQWD, is our operating business is a node infrastructure. So we take our Bitcoin, we accumulate it through the capital markets, we deploy it on the Lightning Network. So when there's transactions going on the Lightning Network, we earn fees. And then we get those fees, goes on our balance sheet in Satoshis. which everyone will love here. It increases our Bitcoin per share organically. So we're able to add that to the flywheel of doing capital market accretive financings, but also the business. You're getting Bitcoin in these revenues as in transactions, and that goes directly to our Bitcoin per share. So that's the way that we earn yield, is we're using Bitcoin as that technical requirement to be a node operator in the infrastructure as a Lightning Network player, and in earning yield in the form of Satoshis of revenue that way.
Well, I will provide a bit of nuance into the yield aspect. As you may know, Capital B is completely focused on the increase of Bitcoin per share over time. That's what we believe is the actual yield that you can provide to investors. I think it's useful to take a step back and look at the overall state of the economy. The United States government has discovered that basically the only solution is devaluation of the currency. And what is happening today is the largest financial institutions are accepting the fact that Bitcoin is replacing gold as the unquestionable asset that is required for a society to function as a trust layer. And in that context, your worst enemy is to pursue your good idea instead of the great idea. And the good idea is to find ways to play with Bitcoin and have a risk on the asset side of your balance sheet. But the great idea is actually to have the asset side of your balance sheet the most boring possible. To not take a risk on that asset side of the balance sheet, because I think what the market realizes in the current market conditions is that there is a proof of work. And actually getting Bitcoin is extremely hard. And that the best way to accumulate the most Bitcoin possible, I think you can see it. It's the strategy playbook. It's literally the company that has the most Bitcoin on earth in terms of publicly listed companies. They own 50% of the market. And so what can you do? Well, you can probably take lessons from what has been done and look at how to deploy that at scale in your country, in your region. And so what we've been doing since 5 November 2024, also the election of Donald Trump, since the company was launched for the Bitcoin Treasury company, is to maximize what we can do in terms of when we say putting your assets as work. What putting your assets as work is literally issuing the best credit instruments that you can in the market. And that's what we've been doing with the Bitcoin convertible bond instruments over 5 years. Yes, there is an aspect of risk, but what happens is that you maximize the number of Bitcoin per share with a risk minimized approach and no leverage. And so then there is a market for other strategies, of course, and you can definitely as well contribute, as you mentioned, to the Lightning Network, can contribute to the real world economy, and there is a market for any company. But what we've decided is to focus on what we can do best, which is to infiltrate capital markets and to build the largest balance sheet over the continent, to issue the best quality credit instruments, and in that way accumulate Bitcoin in the most aggressive way, but also the most conservative way without taking too much risk on the asset side of the balance sheet.
Yeah, no, really great answer. I'd love to also answer my own question, but yeah, from the Treasury side, you know, it's very similar to what Alexandre just explained, right? It's about really building up that, you know, strong balance sheet, you know, in Bitcoin in Europe, right? Most importantly, right, as you do as well, and then leveraging that balance sheet to offer credit products to the gigantic European fixed income market, right? I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't know or don't realize, but of course Europe is, you know, the second richest or wealthiest continent in the world, but also has like a huge amount of savings, and most of this is in pension funds and in insurance companies, right, who are very long fixed income. So this market for credit in Europe is actually the biggest in the world, right? In many ways, much larger than in the US. So it's no coincidence that also Strategy, right, with Michael Saylor, decided to, you know, create their very first non-USD Bitcoin-backed credit instrument in euro, right? And that's a very interesting way to put your Bitcoin to work, because essentially you're introducing a slight bit of a leverage, but a really tiny bit, right? Like Strategy maybe has, it's maybe 1% levered or something like that, to create a fixed income product, for real use case in Europe, right? So these are all very interesting ways to look at putting your Bitcoin to work. But maybe just to kind of mix it up a little bit, right? So we've all heard each other's strategies, right? We've all heard each other's or ways of thinking about it, right? This is also from the Treasury perspective very much a way of thinking. And yeah, maybe to quickly comment on each other's strategy. Have you looked into hosting a Lightning node, for example? What do you think about the different opportunities out there?
We do. All of our products are Lightning enabled. We have run our own nodes. We also partner with Lightning service providers. And we were the first ATM company to have Lightning enabled ATMs. But basically where we really focus is trying to develop real world markets where we have the opportunity to create or earn in Bitcoin. So we would be providing a service to somebody who wants to use their Bitcoin to accomplish a goal, and we would be buying that Bitcoin for dollars at a markdown. And then in turn, taking custody of that Bitcoin and then selling that Bitcoin out at a markup. And so we're constantly earning and building revenue in Bitcoin. And then we're also taking our dollar profits and accumulating Bitcoin for our own treasury. So we look at ourselves as like a Bitcoin flywheel. Where can we circulate Bitcoin through our system and accumulate Bitcoin onto our balance sheet as the business grows?
And maybe also to kind of dive into this, like what is kind of the annual percentage of yield that we're looking to generate with these different. Maybe we should each answer that.
Yeah. It's basically around 4% net after all expenses.
Yeah, for us, we just announced a couple of weeks ago that we deployed 45 BTC through the Lightning Network, and we had an 8.9% annualized APY. So really impressive, really scalable. That's what we're aiming to do, scale that up and hopefully keep that percentage up. And our Bitcoin yield to date, kind of interlaps with the question, is about 50%. And we're aiming to keep that steady, obviously increasing it over time as well.
And where does that difference come from? So you're saying that it's about 8% on the Lightning-based activities, but 50% on the broader Bitcoin yield for the company? Like where does that difference come from?
Well, the difference is, we're getting the revenue from the Bitcoin that we're deploying. That's that 8.9%. And then the Bitcoin yield I'm talking about when it comes to like shares, et cetera. So those are the two differences there.
Awesome.
So it's not really comparable, of course, but to date we've generated 1,600% BTC yield, but not in the form of the yield that you can generate with by putting your BTC on a Lightning node or putting your BTC to other purposes, but by actually issuing securities that will maximize the number of Bitcoin per share. So what is happening today in the market is a massive compression of the premiums. What has happened in the Bitcoin Treasury company space is that in May, June, there was a lot of speculation that there would be a lot of growth of Bitcoin itself and Bitcoin Treasury companies. And now it's quite the reverse. There is a lot of speculation that Bitcoin Treasury companies have potentially difficulties to raise more capital. And so our focus at Capital B is to have different steps towards the potential of maximization of that BTC yield over time. And what we've identified with our banking partners, with our institutional investor partners, is that there are certain sizes and steps that you need to follow to maximize the number of capital that you can raise without or with low dilution. And so in that respect, a Bitcoin Treasury company that wins in the market is a Bitcoin Treasury company that first and foremost has, one, very liquid markets, and two, a broad range of different investors, not only in their local market, but in their international market. And Capital B in that respect has been the most liquid, investable Bitcoin Treasury company in the continent. And we've had the most diverse set of investors with 40 plus institutions that are in the capitalization table, and the only one major Bitcoin treasury together with Strategy that has maintained a premium over the Bitcoin treasury company bear market. And you can explain that with one, of course, the ability to tap in our BTC-denominated convertible bond instrument out of Luxembourg, which has been the first and very innovative in the world. And the second as well, the capitalization structure. And so something we have not discussed is what is the type of instruments and the type of investors that join your company. So if you are very clear and you have a very straight strategy to maximize BTC yield in terms of the strategy playbook to deploy it at scale, then investors have already a more long-term strategy when it comes to investing in your company, and they are not fearful at the first bear market. And so what will likely happen is that today investors don't know how to value a Bitcoin treasury company, and so they look directly at the Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and they look at the P&L and they don't understand why it doesn't follow the Bitcoin treasury strategy, and because the benefits you can find them on the balance sheet. And so what will happen is over time, investors and institutions, and that's where we spend a lot of time with institutional investors. I have 50 meetings lined up over the following weeks, is exactly to maximize that understanding of the Bitcoin treasury company and the potential of what you can do with your balance sheet and with the liability side of the balance sheet.
Amazing. Maybe to hook on to that, Paul, like you are currently a private company. You want to be a public company. Does that mean you will follow the Bitcoin treasury company playbook, or are you going after a different type of investor? Maybe very curious to hear more about that.
We are having conversations with, we'll just say, large Bitcoin holders that want to be a part of a Bitcoin operating company. And we're open to that because we think that there's a really synergistic combination between a Bitcoin financial services company and a Bitcoin treasury company. So, we foresee a future where we'll be a combination of those things. We think being public is going to help facilitate that. And so that will be the way we approach the future. And we don't see any reason why a Bitcoin operating company like ourselves cannot be a good fit with a company that understands how to financially engineer the markets to accumulate more Bitcoin for our treasury.
No, very, very interesting. And maybe, coming to the Lightning side of the story as well, how has your experience been explaining, the Bitcoin, the rails, right, to investors?
Well, it depends who it is, but it can be difficult, definitely, for sure. But overall, I mean, if you simplify it, and I use this abacus example, which I saw on YouTube, where you have, if anyone doesn't know what an abacus is, if you've been to a doctor when you're a kid, and you have those little toys in the waiting room, those little wire toys, and you have those little rings on it. That's how a Lightning network, how a Lightning channel works. So you can just go back and forth with the same Bitcoin on a channel that you open up with somebody, and so there's realistically no fees there whatsoever. So if you have some simplicity around expanding the Lightning network, it helps a lot. So, but overall, it can take a little time to educate them on that. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. I think we're slowly coming up on time. Maybe a couple of final words, like where can people find you and online in the real world, of course, and what are the final things you want people to take away? Maybe starting with you, Alexandre.
Yeah, I'd like to say that overall we are on the same mission. We work for Bitcoin. We actually work for the decentralization of Bitcoin. It's a bit counterintuitive, but by providing the Bitcoin message to a very broad set of institutions, of different banks, and custodying Bitcoin at those institutions and educating everyone on the topic when we have those conversations, overall you have much more people that get introduced to Bitcoin, and you have much more banks that custody Bitcoin, and then they compete on self-custody solutions as well. And probably at some point they will integrate Lightning and they will integrate the ATM solutions. And I think that this will be good overall. We also own and run our own Bitcoin nodes, Lightning nodes, and liquid nodes. And so We also believe in the future of tokenized capital markets, and that's why also we of course position as a Bitcoin Treasury company to be the cornerstone of those digital capital markets. And so you can find us on X, LinkedIn, anywhere at Alexandre Laizet or at Capital B. Feel free to reach out, and happy to hear your suggestions or recommendations. Thank you.
You can find me on X, Bitcoin, Whitcomb, my last name, Bitcoin, my last name.
Yeah, so Byte Federal is on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and you can visit our website at bytefederal.com. And thank you.
Yeah, and thanks very much to everyone here. Of course, make sure to follow @treasury_BTC on X. And yeah, we're very excited to be presenting this event to you, and of course, the coming 2 days as well. So make sure to to head there as well for some great content. And yeah, that was it. Big round of applause for
Thanks, guys.
the guys.